Hi everyone, let's talk about whether or not you should change for your partner. This is such a big question, right? This whole idea of change for another person. A lot of women come to me and they have this desire to change certain things about their partner or their behaviors. And there's always the flip side of that too, right? Should you change for another person? Because it's easy to argue that, the person you love should accept you exactly for who you are. You shouldn't have to change. You should just simply be who you are, and the person loves you for who you are, and that should be the way it is, right? But where there's a nuance there, a very important nuance, is that sometimes, I'd even say oftentimes, we can either speak or think or behave in ways that aren't really truly who we are deep down inside, right? We are taking on these behaviors, these thoughts because of traumas in our past, experiences that we've had, and even just habits we've created over time, right? So we, after a while of reacting a certain way or thinking or feeling a certain way, we start to believe that, well, this is who we are. This is just how we were born. This is pretty much like all we can remember ever being. And that's not necessarily true. And let me know here if any of you have read the book by Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, right? Even in the title, it says right there, a lot of times we get into the habit of being a certain way, and then we start thinking, well, that's who we are. And then we might start thinking, well, I've been dealt these cards in life because this is who I am. And it puts us in a position where we lose our power. And, to put it very bluntly, we become victims. And unfortunately, as a result, sometimes what ends up happening is that we settle in relationships, or we settle in our life, or we don't go after the things we truly desire, or, just go after our dreams. So it's such an important distinction and topic that I want to talk about today, because I want to talk about how this impacts you in your relationships and to what extent you should explore this idea of change, right, for yourself. And should you be doing it for another person, or should you be doing it for yourself? So I'll share two thoughts on this, and that's kind of a lead-in to the first thought I wanted to share, which is you want to change for yourself. First and foremost, whenever we try to change for another person, we risk, building up resentment. We can end up creating expectations. And I see this with a lot of women, right? Especially those of us who are really into the personal development, the self-help, the spiritual growth. When we start doing these things and we don't see our partner doing the same thing or trying to change or better himself, this can create resentment in the relationship that we're having to change, or we're changing, and the other person isn't. So we want to be careful when we're doing it with someone else in mind. And I'll go deeper into that one, right? Because ultimately you want to change for yourself, but at the end of the day, you could kind of argue that you're changing for the other person, because when you change yourself, it benefits the other person. So in that light, if you think of it that way, should you change for your partner? Well, you should change for yourself if that's what you desire, or if there are things in your life or in your relationship that you particularly don't like right now or would like to improve. But at the end of the day, you're also changing for them, because they, like I said, they get to benefit from that. But at the end of the day, you really want to focus on what you're getting out of it and detach as much as possible from doing it for the other person and what happens with the other person. I know for myself, that was the big game changer in my relationship. I didn't see myself as changing, when things were getting rocky with my husband years ago now. I wasn't picturing in my mind that I was changing for him, right? I just decided that I was going to be the best person I can be. And I'm going to also not only, that's the other thing I see a lot of, right? A lot of women say, okay, I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on myself first. When I did it, right, I told myself I would focus on myself, but also with a slant towards being in a relationship. Because I think if we just focus on ourselves and not also learn the skills, the relationship skills and understanding men, then you're just going to be really good at being with yourself. All right. You want to also do it with this lens, if that's what you desire, right? If you're desiring your happily ever after, with that lens of the other person. So again, you're not necessarily changing for them, but you're making changes that also benefit that aspect of your life, that relationship, or that love and that romance that you also desire. So that's number one. Change for yourself, and ultimately, in a way, you can say you're changing for the other person, but really it's focused on you and that other person benefits. So the second thought I wanted to share about this is it's okay to change in the sense of accepting influence. And I'm using that term, accepting influence, because it's from the book, The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. I hope I got the title right. I was looking for the book, but it's somewhere around my house because I'm always looking and referring to it. By John Gottman. And the whole principle is when he studied couples who were happily, married and in, healthy relationships, one of the things he noticed is that one of the predictors of not getting divorced or being happy in a relationship is being to accept influence from the other person. So this, I kind of wanted to bring this up because it comes under the idea of changing. So if you feel triggered by this whole idea of changing for another person, because really you shouldn't have to change for another person, but you can, and there could be benefits to you, right? Because you might want to break some of these unhealthy patterns that you have from the past, but looking at it from the aspect of, what are things that you can change in your relationship, right? At the end of the day, you're building a life with another person. And to some extent, it's only fair and loving to accept some feedback from that other person. And, sometimes do things maybe that you wouldn't normally do, or kind of, be curious about that feedback that they might have in terms of, some things that they would like to see you do differently or maybe try differently. And it's not, again, about changing who you are, but maybe there are certain things that you can do differently or do less often, and that would also benefit you, right? Maybe sometimes our partner has points that are valid. So I encourage you to kind of keep an open mind about that too. That is something that was really helpful to me when I get triggered in my relationship. Again, it's something I use to this day, right? All these tools, all this knowledge I share, I use every single day. But if my husband says something to me and it kind of feels like he's trying to change me or trying to, convince me of his opinion or whatnot, or, I'm doing something that annoys him, instead of getting triggered right away, I'll really reflect on it, right? Like, is this something that could be annoying? Is this something that could be hurtful? Is this something that I could change that'll have benefits to me? Is this something actually I'm doing, maybe unconsciously, that I don't even like that I'm doing for myself, right? So accepting influence, again, not changing who you are, but kind of listening to your partner and kind of being open to any kind of suggestions or feedback. Again, as long as it's in a loving way. I'm not talking here about narcissistic relationships or whatnot, or really, emotionally abusive situations. But this is something that you can use just in your day-to-day. Really look at some of these changes that could be made to improve the relationship. And obviously, we're going to want our partner to do the same, to reciprocate. That's something that always comes up, right? If I'm going to do this, then I kind of expect him to do that too. And just like I said, for that, I always encourage, to really try surrendering a little bit more. That's a word that I hadn't used in a while with clients, and it came up again recently because, like I said, a lot of times when we make certain changes, when we look within, our partner eventually will also open up too, and we just have to kind of surrender to that idea, or at least give it a shot long enough to determine whether or not things are going to change, right? So that's a whole rant, that's a whole other video. But for now, I hope this is helpful. So when it comes to should you change for your partner, number one, think about really focusing on yourself, right? What are things that you can change for yourself if that's what you desire, right? If there are things happening in your life or in your relationship specifically that you are unhappy about, for things to change, you have to change, that old adage, right? And number two, accepting influence from your partner is actually a sign that you're in a healthy relationship. So again, it's not losing who you are in the relationship, because that's something that can happen. And for those of you who are like me, who went through divorce, that is like a big thing about finding out who you are again, right? We don't want to lose ourselves in relationships, but at the same time, we can just accepting some influence and some feedback And working together with our partner is a sign of a happy, healthy relationship that lasts in the long term. So I hope this was interesting to you guys. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. I will probably be back soon. I am loving doing these videos. Let me know if you like these videos. Should I keep doing this? Do you enjoy the content, the value that I'm sharing with you? And if you have any topic ideas, leave them in the comments and I will make sure to record a video for you on that.